And welcome once again. 2019 is here. We're all extremely excited for what is going to be a cracking Formula One season. Uh, I'm joined, as always, by the ineffable Fabio from Italy or Albania. I'm not sure which. I think it's Italy.
It's Macedonia. Yeah, no, it's
Macedonia.
yeah. I don't know.
He's changed. He's changed nationality again. There you
I
go.
have to. Yeah, I have to.
He
I
was
mean,
French. He was French last night.
no, fuck you. I've never
He's
been
Greek
French.
tonight.
I've never been French. Come on.
I thought that's what Nicola said.
Yeah, Nicola is a cunt, but yeah, I love him anyway.
But there you go. So anyway, welcome everybody to Formula One. Welcome Fabio.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. I thought testing was awesome. Did you
Mhm.
manage to catch much of the testing?
I catch some of it. I mean, yeah, I think I followed day one, and I don't know why I missed day two, but day three and day four, yeah. I mean, I just follow some of that. It's testing, so it's always I wouldn't say unpredictable, but results are not really. I mean, they're interesting, but it's very tough to get a real telling from the results.
Indeed, they don't hand the points out till Sunday, so
Yeah.
gonna have to wait for Melbourne Sunday. But nonetheless, it should be a fantastic year. Judging by the testing that we have seen, Ferrari and Mercedes both put in cracking testing sessions. Both of them clocking up about 1,000 laps each. So that's just a huge amount in testing. So they're going into the season with quite a lot of data,
Hmm.
and this means nothing but the greatest for reliability. I feel we've had no engine breakdowns this year in testing, so
Yeah.
that's fantastic. A few problems with gearboxes and the Ferrari tire, of course. Sebastian had a problem with his tire on day 3 or something like that at Barcelona with test one.
Yeah.
As the screenshot for the for this hangout shows. But nonetheless, the Ferrari looked absolutely awesome. I thought really awesome.
It looked like a very easy car to drive. That was the general impression. I can't remember which day. I think it was day three. Sebastian was driving. He made a couple of mistakes at turn one, and most of the people which watched, which saw how he was doing, were pretty impressed by the way he could recover from a mistake. That's usually a sign that the car is not like a scalpel, but it gives you a little bit of leeway, which is important as we know. During the race you can't have always precise laps, so you got to accommodate for small mistakes and stuff like that. Change of trajectory and things like that. So yeah, I mean that was the thing which impressed people most.
Yeah, I would agree. It looked like it was on rails, especially in the again this year, like it was last year, in the medium high speed corners. It looked really solid.
Hmm.
Again, and the same problem again with last year. I felt the Mercedes looked very twitchy. So I expect that it's going to go down to the type of circuit again. Except this year, I feel Ferrari do have the advantage.
Mercedes was interesting because they came with a car for the first 2 days of testing, and then they had a whole new set of changes for the week after that, for the other testing, which is it is quite interesting because I mean, of course, you can't make all these parts in 1 week, as Williams unfortunately, told us.
Yes.
But the fact that they had this kind of methodology was quite interesting, and I'm going so much as saying that probably the car that we would see in Australia would be a different one too. It seems,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, it was interesting,
Yeah, I've
but
said that.
yeah.
I think the reason they did it was to try and test the data against the aero they get from the wind tunnel and
Hmm.
see whether they can rely on the wind tunnel to give them accurate predictions for upgrade potential. So that would be my guess.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, well, of course they have a program and they're following that program.
Yeah,
But
as you said, they couldn't have made all those parts in 1 week,
oh,
so
uh,
they must have had them already.
yeah,
So presumably they were just testing the base car, and then they wanted to test the aero updates and
yeah,
compare that against the wind tunnel.
yeah. They maybe want to have a baseline, the first tests, and which is, I mean, it's it's an interesting approach. It's ballsy because, as we all know, F1 cars, they don't have too many days to test, so
Indeed,
just open, inverted commas, wasting a test session, to have a baseline for something, and then you will have, some evolution. It's quite ballsy, but yeah.
yeah. Well, as I said, I think they're doing it so that they can make upgrades in the wind tunnel and
Mhm.
have some kind of reliability as to whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
And I hope that's what it is, because if it's not, then as you're saying, it's just wasted a test. So yeah, I think that's why they're doing it. I don't like the fact they haven't put more rake in their car. I really don't. I'm very nervous this year about them, and
Hmm.
I think this is going to give Ferrari a huge upper hand. And if unlike last year, the other teams don't come out of the gates so quickly, like Red Bull coming out very quickly. They got 2 wins last year early on. Then I think Ferrari's going to go in with a huge advantage mid-season, and yeah, it's going to be really close. So I'm just so excited about this year. It's the closest year I can see for quite a while, and it's the first year I think Ferrari have really got their foot on the throat of the whole Formula One paddock. So I'm so excited about it. I really
Yeah.
am. And with Leclerc, they got 3 drivers this year. Did you know that? They've got Sebastian Vettel,
Hmm.
Leclerc, and
Uh-huh.
Leclerc.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's fantastic.
It
Three
is.
drivers. Uh,
It is. Yeah, I mean, Shard was. I mean, we talked about him last year, and you know how fond I am of the guy. I think he's very solid and he's consistent. And I mean, to be fair, I was quite even more surprised, by the tests. He really, it doesn't look like he's a rookie. If you get what I mean,
I do. Yeah.
the mental approach, the consistency, I mean, that was very, very, very impressive. I will go on and say now, at the risk of being, shat all over in the following years, that he really looks like one of the less um, uh, sympathetic drivers that Ferrari has ever had, but he reminds me a lot of Niki Lauda.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
I just hope that he's less of a dick than Niki. But yeah, the mental approach, the kind of thing is something in between, Michael Schumacher and Niki Lauda. No frills, no shit. He goes there, he's consistent, he does his job. He doesn't complain. He just is there, for the fun of it. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. We got a little comment in the side chat here. Did we know that Paddy Lowe is taking a leave of absence from Williams? I didn't know that, and that's a huge downer for Williams, isn't it?
I've heard that they had problems with some parts. So I didn't know he was going to take a leave of absence. I don't know if the thing is related to the problems they had. I think that the federation told Williams to fix a couple of parts. The one was the rear mirror,
Hmm.
and the other one, I think it was um, the upper part of the triangle of, I think, the rear suspension, if I'm not wrong. It
Okay.
was so, and I don't know if that has something to do with that.
Weird. I'm not sure. It broke about an hour or so ago, so it's brand new.
Oh, cool.
That's a huge downer for Williams because they're going to they've been relying on him to produce something special.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is big news. Thank you, TJ. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also just to go back, I think Leclerc is a great driver. He's got a lot of potential. I really appreciate you saying that he's like Nicky because Nicky was also a great driver, very young as well. So I can see the comparison there. I think it's a bit unfortunate that he's in a team with Sebastian this year because I really don't see any way that he's going to get the better of Sebastian unless unless there's a lot of mechanical breakdowns for Sebastian this year, which I don't think is likely. So in some sense, it's going to be unfortunate for him, and how he deals with that, I think, will probably make his career or break his career. So that's very difficult for him, I think.
Uh, yeah. I mean, Sebastian has to deliver this year. Uh,
Without doubt.
I mean, he's a 4 times world champion. People tend to forget that because he has an attitude. It's well. I mean, well, I don't agree with the fact that people say that it seems to be that he's breaking down under pressure. I don't think that's the problem. But this is just me, so I will bow to the general consensus if that's the consensus. The thing is that now he has to deliver because last year he had a very, very big chance. I mean, the car was spectacular. There were issues. I think the issues were more at uh, they had way more to do with things which happened outside of the car rather than in the car.
Well, I think setup was one of the things that really hindered him.
Yeah,
He found it difficult to set the car up sometimes.
yeah, there is that, but there was some weird things happening last year, and again, I mean,
Well, generally,
I've been there. I know it's a really tough job, but I was really mesmerized when I can't remember which race it was, but in Ferrari they were complaining about not having a spotter on the track.
oh yeah,
That made no fucking sense to me. And I mean, if you start with that line of reasoning, there is something wrong somewhere else, because that's something which it's bullshit, right?
yeah,
So
for sure. In terms of the expectations of Formula One,
right,
this is not IndyCar, you know.
yeah, so if that's your excuse, really, I mean, fuck me. I mean, that reminded me like in the 90s when, the car was breaking down and poor Magnetti Marelli was blamed for everything because it was always an electronics problem, you know?
Yeah,
and,
it can never be the engine, in other words.
no, it was electronics,
Yeah,
electronics all the way. And no, and then believe me, I lived that thing, in my career with two less wheels.
yeah.
And
Martin Brundle said an amazing thing once when they knew it couldn't be the engine. He said, "Oh, it's an electronics problem. The problem was a piston went through the electronics box."
right, right, yeah. But it's always an electronic. Yeah, I mean, the engine blew up, and a wire was cut. So that was well, what the fuck are you talking about? So yeah, I know it works like that. But and that reminded me a lot of the old excuses about electronics. Yeah, you're missing a spotter. Really? I mean, I can send them a list of at least 20 people which can do that job for free. You know, you can send them all around the track and tell them, okay, this is the weather at this corner. I can literally send them 20 people which are going to do that for free. So that's not the issue.
Indeed. Indeed. Okay, another quick message from TJ Downing here. Ferrari have the worst strategists I've ever seen. Last year, the strategy wasn't great in some of the races, for sure.
Uh,
Do we think this is changing, or Because in the past, of course, they've had the best strategists. I'm thinking Ross Brawn.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I can see they made mistakes last year. I can totally see that. I don't really agree. Let's not forget that at the beginning of the season, I mean, I remember the first race in Australia, and I think 2 races after that, everybody was praising the strategy of Ferrari. And this is the kind of things that you just do not forget how to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
And of course, there was the great race where Vettel won it by pitting under the safety car.
Right. So,
or the virtual safety car, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, strategy in F1 right now, without fuel and all that stuff, it's very tricky, and it is very easy. You're either a genius or a fool, and it's just a matter of milliseconds. So, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I remember. I can't remember what race it was last year when Hamilton was supposed to go in the pit, and then he cut the corner. He got back into the track.
Yeah.
Either
Spain or Portugal, I think.
Yeah.
Portugal. Yeah.
I mean, that saved the race. But if he actually wasn't able to do that and get in the pit, it would have lost the race, and everybody would have blamed the strategy. So, was it a mistake in strategy? Of course it was. It was just able to save it at the very last second. Yeah. It's very tough.
Sorry, I've just been corrected. DJ says Hockenheim.
Hockenheim,
yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think Hockenheim is also a good chat. So yeah, okay.
So it's tough, and I know I'm partial, but I mean it's a very hard job, and it's very difficult. It's a very difficult job.
Indeed.
To never make a mistake with that kind of approach.
Okay, I'm just going to share the. I hope I'm going to share the test results here. Can you see that?
Yes.
So Vettel clearly out front by a huge margin of 0.003 of a second.
Mm-hmm.
Very close. But of course, they've had 8 days to set up the cars, so you would expect them to be close.
Yeah.
And I would say that Ferrari probably could have done that time very early on, whereas it would take a Mercedes a good few days to get there. Leclerc, he did really, really well, I thought. I mean, that's so close to Sebastian's time. Leclerc also did very well. Bottas, well, I don't know about Bottas. He didn't seem to have a great testing, and I'm a little bit worried about that. 0.3 behind Hamilton there is quite a substantial amount. Really happy to see the Renault up there.
Yes.
So that's great news, even though it's still over half a second behind Vettel, and that's still an eternity. The absence of the Red Bulls is quite amazing, shall we say. And it's really good to see Albon and Kvyat up there. So what do you think?
I think that what's really interesting is Leclerc time. It is very close to Hamilton, and there is 0.3 of a second from Bottas. So if you're looking for, and it's very stupid. It's very hard and sometimes stupid, to find hints from tests. But if we have to look for one and decide which car is better right now, that's a good indication, because the guy is a rookie. I know. I mean, he's done a previous season with a car which is not even there. Okay, so, and he's third, and he's very close to Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Which, I mean, if I were Mercedes, I would be way more scared by Leclerc than Vettel.
I agree. I mean, it kind of means that Mercedes have got a big problem in terms of the manufacturers' championship.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's looking likely. Although all of this really is circuit dependent, and it could easily switch around the other way depending on the circuit.
Absolutely. No, you're right.
I'm guessing that's the kind of thing that Mercedes are going for. hence having two car setups completely
Yeah,
different.
but you see, I mean, it's kind of a. It seems to be it's kind of a rerun from last year, where uh, I still think that overall, if you look at the whole season, okay, not only the last part of the season, I think that overall Ferrari was a better car than Mercedes. Overall,
Sure.
not by a huge margin, but overall.
Hmm.
And my rationale is not the fact that they lost the championship, but the fact that uh, the position that Kimi managed to reach at the end of the season.
Right.
So, I mean, Lewis had an amazing season last year.
He really did. Yeah.
But I think that you will agree with me that he was driving sometime, most of the times he was driving over the car.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a problem for a. It's not a problem for a driver, but it's a problem for a for a team because
Right.
you don't have the right car, and if God forbid something happens to your top driver,
Mm.
all of a sudden you're fighting for third.
Indeed. Yeah.
And it's not a good position to be, especially if you're Mercedes. So
Well, again, maybe using the second driver to take points off the or get in the way and make the win easier. There's all sorts of tactics that can be used there, so that's very
yeah,
difficult. But Leclerc looks in a really good position to hold Hamilton up, whereas Bottas doesn't look in a good position to hold Vettel up. So
right,
we'll have to
right,
see how that goes.
right.
What do you think of Renault this year?
Uh, well, you know what I think about Ricciardo is my favorite, if not, you know, the greatest driver. I think it's on the grid right now. Not because he's fast, because he's so much fun.
Yeah,
I mean, he is a proper driver, right? It might not be the fastest, but is one that I would love to go out and have a beer with.
fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I'm really happy. I mean, if they manage to set up a car which fights for the third, fourth position, I'll be more than happy than that for
Likewise.
him. Yeah.
Likewise. Okay. Well done to Toro Rosso, of course.
Hmm.
I think those are great, especially with two relatively inexperienced drivers. McLaren, a really great return. I think that looks really good that they're in the top half.
Yes.
So I'm pretty pleased about that. Anything else you want to mention there?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things. The change of livery in Ferrari. I mean, they're going for a matte red.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And apparently they did that, to save some weight.
yeah. Bullshit.
Uh, well, I don't know if it's bullshit or not. I mean, well, we are old enough to remember, Mercedes. That the reason why German cars are silver is because Audi came up with a car without the paint to save, the paint. So I'm not really sure it's bullshit.
Well, that was
Uh,
back in the day, dude. I mean, I'd remind you that Red Bull had a Mac car,
yeah.
and it did them no good, right?
No, but the thing is, the reason I was saying that is that this is the first year that they're going for a matte car, and there were rumors in the pit that they had problems which they've never faced before. Like there is a lot of tire which actually sticks to the car and weights the car down. So they still have to figure out how the fuck they're going to deal with that, because it starts lighter, it might end up heavier than it's
Sure,
supposed to be.
sure.
So that
Go ahead.
no, I mean, so that's one thing, and the other thing, which I think it's very important and very um, peculiar, is I've seen a change of attitude in Ferrari communication this year. We all know that the previous team manager was sacked last year, Maurizio Rivabene, and now it's Mattia Binotto, which is an engineer,
Yeah.
which scares the shit out of me. Because yeah, I mean, when I saw the guy say, "Okay, we are fucked. We are really doomed," right? Because engineers are not good at that kind of job, in my experience. But I got to say, I was surprised. When the accident with Vettel happened, they had papers flying out from the Ferrari organization, saying exactly what was happening in a very short amount of time, and they were not fucking around. They told exactly what was happening. Now, this is this is big. It's big for every F1 team, but it's bigger, especially for Ferrari, which they have always kept all the cards close to the chest.
Indeed, yeah.
So I think that was very, very interesting. But we'll see, what happens in the future.
Yeah, once the stress starts ramping up, I think then we'll see it.
Yeah, but I was really surprised. I was, yeah.
Okay, so pretty good on Norris there. He's done really great considering he's a rookie and he's very young, one of the youngest ever.
Yeah.
So that's great. Haas looked really good on track, I thought. Not necessarily the fastest, but they looked very stable. So again, I think that's going to be quite interesting. And then on to number 2 screen, Gasly. This is terrible, isn't it? Red Bull down here.
Yeah.
That's 0.8 of a second behind. That's worse than if they stuck a Renault in the back.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened to Red Bull. I don't know if they are behind in the development or what, but there is something going on. I don't know.
Definitely something going on. Ricardo down there, well, we're just going to have to hope that he just had a bad day, right?
Yeah.
Didn't really have time to get his car together for that particular session. Raikkonen, what do we reckon?
Oh, I think
that's terrible, isn't it?
I'm not really sure about that. He made really well in the first tests, and I think that the guy, judging from what he wrote, from what he says, it seems to be that he's really having fun this year. And if Kimi Raikkonen has fun driving a car, is a problem for everybody.
Yeah, definitely, especially the pubs, the local pubs. But there we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, disappointing, I thought, for Raikkonen and Giovinazzi. Likewise with Racing Point for Stroll and Perez, but maybe they're holding something back. Maybe we'll just have to see how those things go. Other than that, it's pretty much as is.
Yeah. But I think that if I have to pick out a car whose time are not well represented in this timetable, I think I will pick Alpha, because I think they did well in the first tests, and they tried something else in the second. I don't know, but I think them fighting for everything but the top teams. And the top teams, I'm not including Renault so far, just because we have to see what the fuck they're doing. So yeah, I'll be really cautious.
Yes, I agree.
The car seems to be a very good car. They're coming from a solid car from last year. They made some interesting. They have some interesting solutions, which, if they work, people have to catch up with that, which is a thing. I'm thinking about the front wing, which is it is definitely different from the other ones. And if it works, it's good. If it doesn't, fuck. But and also Alpha right now, especially this year, is what Toro Rosso was for Red Bull last year. Is the team where they try shit.
Yeah, that might well be the case. I am surprised, because a Ferrari engine with a Ferrari rear end, I would expect to be up there regardless. So unless their aero is terrible, which it didn't look to me to be terrible, I am quite surprised. But again, we'll just have to see how the season pans out.
Yeah, when we're talking about those kind of things, we got to keep into consideration the fact that they might want to save some parts. And I'm not talking about the engine. Well, you also want to save, all the other parts, because
Yeah,
it's not that you're floating in money. So I mean, even stuff like bushings, and all that kind of stuff, it's really expensive, so you don't want
sure.
to fuck it up, in a
Yeah, and
test.
that's a good point. I mean, maybe that the secondary teams weren't allowed to turn the engines up until the main teams had done more of the endurance testing anyway.
Yeah.
So there's lots of reasons why they might not be on the pace straight away, or at
Hmm.
least their potential pace.
Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, I'm really excited about this year. I think it's going to be very close. The midfield looks close. It looks closer than it was last year. So
Hmm.
yeah, I can't wait. When is it? It's about 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm having a brain fart because the MotoGP is always starting. I think they start 1 week before. So yeah, it's probably in 2 weeks.
I think it 23rd is normally
Yeah,
when
yeah.
normally the weekend it is. So
Uh-huh.
I'm just again dead excited, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you every couple of weeks now,
Yes.
as it probably will be.
Yeah.
And it's really good to catch up with you again. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you TJ. Thank you Wild, and
Yeah.
we'll see you very shortly.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Keep looking at, and thank you, TJ and Wild Art. Those